Okay. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Latifa Fadausi Adileko, and I'm popularly known as Dr. Beans. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here today talking to you about this awesome topic, food processing and preservation for profit, local technique and global potential. Um, I'm the founder of Teaquat Foods, a food processing company, which we like to call ourselves as a beans innovative company, where we transform the way individuals consume beans. And I'm excited to share this topic to you that is very close to my journey as an entrepreneur and a proud African. Um, First, for me, which is very important, is the question why. Why do we preserve food? Why processing and preservation? And one of the key things that has been in my head ever since this topic was sent to me is that data. It is data that causes why. Most times it is because of the data and information that you have. That's what many people act upon. And I'd like to tell you that each year the world wastes over 1.3 billion tons of food. In Nigeria alone, post harvest loss is about 40% of our crops, not because we lack food, but because we lack preservation. And preservation, when you hear the word preservation, many people will say, according to the background of agriculture that you have, you think it's lack of storage, but it is actually beyond lack of storage. And I want to tell you that food preservation and processing is beyond storage. It is more of food security, nutrition, and economic empowerment. If you wonder closely, food security is basically that um, food security is basically that there is lack of food, or either by affordability or means. And when there is no food security, this actually leads to um, loss of lives. And also nutrition, if there is no proper nutrition, which is still one of the reasons why food preservation and food processing is very important, because there's a lot of fortification and access to nutritional food easily, or and if all of these are absent, there's going to be loss of lives. Also, apologies. Also, economic empowerment. Food preservation and processing gives forms of economic empowerment because we get people on board, you provide job opportunities, you give people the opportunities to prosperity, which, if all of these are not available, there are like a daring cost to the economy. And if done right, if all of these are done right, the local techniques we grew up seeing as a child, from our mothers to our grandmothers, they become global solution. So this would actually take me to what these local techniques are. There are four major local techniques of food preservation and processing that we grew up seeing with from our grandmothers or our great grandmothers. First is sun drying and smoking. You notice that a lot of foods these days, they go through sun drying, or it could be sun drying, it could be dehydrating. Sun drying is just Dehydrating is just the modernized or Americanized form of sun drying, where you imitate the heat or the temperature of the sun in a machine. And essentially, what this does is it reduces the moisture content, because usually what causes food spoilage, why we preserve, is because we preserve food because so it doesn't get spoiled. So what causes food spoilage is because there's a higher moisture content that allows the growth of microbes or microorganisms, which essentially leads to the spoilage of foods. So What you're doing with food preservation and food processing is that you're extending the shelf life of that food. So if your food is supposed to stay for like on a normal day, it's supposed to stay for like a week. If with food processing or food preservation, you extend the shelf life to about a month or two before consumption, and it's still going to remain safe, chemical free, and so much more at that. So if you think of sun drying is you're preserving the food. Excuse me. If you're dehydrating, which is like the mechanized form of sun drying, or you're solar drying, you are preserving the food, you are processing the food. And one of the key things I used to tell people that come to meet me, oh, how do you do it so well that you don't like do it so bad? Just these things are not you either learn through experience or you learn from experts. So because I have a background in agriculture, I studied agriculture in my BSc, and I have like a fresh knowledge of what moisture content or moisture level of our foods, our crops essentially should be. So when we dry, we use a moisture meter to measure, and we make sure that we don't dry out all the nutrients of the food. Excuse me. And when you dry, you should also know that when the food is at a certain moisture content, if you keep it for long, there's nothing that's going to happen to it. You're still going to keep the nutrients intact. You're going to keep everything about the food alive. So as for smoking, essentially, even though smoking is like cancerous now based on research, but it was like an old method of preserving our foods, especially our proteins like our fish, dry smoking of fish, smoking of our protein. These were ways of preserving our food locally. And this also lead me to the second method, which is fermentation. I don't know if anyone has heard the word ogiri. Ogiri is made through fermentation. Our pap is made through fermentation. Locust beans is made through fermentation. All of this is essentially healthy for our gut health. They benefit our gut actually, and you'll be shocked that fermentation is a food preservation process, or food process that helps with our health in a good way. And these were food processing techniques that were local, that our forefathers didn't even know. And if you look at it today, the fermented pap then goes into drying, and then we export it today. The fermented iru goes into drying, and then is being exported. Same as ogiri and so much more other foods. And I feel like these foods have I do not feel I know that these foods are full of flavors. They are beneficial to our health. With proper hygiene and packaging and labeling, you see that they meet up with global potentials, and they are well positioned in the global market. The third one is milling and value addition. At Equat Food, like milling is one of our core process, because we are trying to transform the way people consume beans. So we mill the beans into something, into powdery, and make this powder into different things. So milling is a very important is a very important process in food processing. It's a very important step in food processing. This is simply because there are so many advantages of milling. You know, there are some foods that they are difficult to break down when you eat them raw, but when you mill, you break down these foods into a form where it is easily digestible, and it gives it a form of value addition where you are able to process, or formulate different recipes, different products from them. And the last local process is airtight storage. Usually in the olden days, if they want to store something airtight, you see them storing it in in a tight container, and if you go back, nothing is going to happen to that food, which is one local form of um, food processing and preservation. And I'm going to tell you today that this particular local form of food preservation is something that people use today, and it makes up the global standard of food, and it's giving many foods some economical value. If you look at what's it called now, tomatoes are made in this process of pasteurizing. And when you want to pasteurize, you put it in an airtight container and dip it into a hot oil. This these local methods are now into our food processing, and these products, they go out there and they meet global standards. So the next thing I'm just going to quickly touch is that you can actually take your products, whatever you're producing, you're processing, from your backyard to shelf ready products. Even though one key thing that makes it stand out is innovation. And innovation could be in any form. For me, I do not believe that there's entirely something new. It's what is actually new is the way you talk about it, is the way you tell the story, is the way you carry the product, is the way, the perception people have about what you are giving out, because there's nothing entirely new. Ideas, they say, are universal. So what makes you stand out is your form of innovation. It could be techie, it could be branding, it could be anything. And I'm first going to talk about packaging. For us at Take What Food, packaging and branding is one key thing to us. Like, we currently spend so much on it because what we are doing is different, but does not mean that it is new. So we have to find a way to keep um staying in the spotlight. So packaging and branding is one key important thing. And yes, at the initials, it has always been, and you don't even have to spend so much, even if you can't afford so much for it. But beautiful, clean, informative packaging gives your product a fighting chance on every shelf. And for me, I believe that people, just like we say to people online, that when you feed people online about your product, when you take a product photography, people eat with their eyes, people buy with their eyes. The same thing goes to your product, especially your food product. You want them to eat, let them eat with their eyes first. So beautiful, clean, simple, not so tacky packaging will give you the chance to, when people receive your product, it's, there's a form of confidence they have in that product when when you hand it to them, and when you now start to talk about the product to them, they learn, they listen here hears. But when you give them a tacky food product with very tacky packaging, it's going to really put them off at first, before you now start saying, oh, it will take a longer route and longer time to actually acquire a customer. So let me give a beautiful scenario. So if you have somebody that you have two people, right? And one person has a very beautiful clean product. Let me give three people. One of Mr. A has a very beautiful product, very clean, on, you can understand every information. There are allergies, details on the packaging. You can understand whatever that is going on that product. And the product is now very nice. I mean, well processed, hygienically processed and preserved. That is Mr. A. Mr. B has got beautiful products, but his packaging is tacky. In fact, the nylon he used is not properly sealed, and you can easily see that is rough, and the product is nice. That's Mr. B, right? Mr. C has got not good products. He did not process this product very well. The packaging is tacky and not nice. The first person that would acquire that would have a short time and low expense on customer acquisition is Mr. A. The next person that would spend more on customer acquisition is Mr. B. The last, the person that won't acquire a customer at all is Mr. C. Mr. C might acquire a customer and they won't come back. Mr. B, after taking a longer time to acquire that customer, they won't be it will keep taking a longer time to acquire a new customer. But once the customer tastes the product, they know, this product is good. We have scenarios like that where the packaging are not nice. But you want to make sure that you're standing ahead of the game because, excuse me, let me give a typical example of why you see that Nokia, Yahoo Mail, they just go back. It's because they are not staying ahead of the game. And this will bring me to the second step to taking your product from whether your room to shelf ready or to global standards. Storytelling. I mentioned earlier, storytelling is one of the key things. The way you carry your product, the way you talk about your product, the way you talk about this food, the story behind it, the way you let people live in the experience, the perception people have about this food is just a way of preserving the food's heritage, even till from you that you're processing to the farmer. So people want to know why, like behind your product. For example, we went to Lemu where we used to buy our beans from. We went to meet the local farmers, we partnered with them, we created some form of storytelling, and this gives like people confidence. And even when some partners saw these things, they are confident about what we are doing. So at Tikwas, we tell our stories from the farmers to the moms, to the staffs, to people working with us, to people that support us. We tell our stories every now and then. And the next thing is pricing smartly. Pricing is one key important thing. You have to make sure that you are not overpricing your food, because one of the things that I mentioned earlier is food security, and you want to make sure that people are able to access this food. One of the most important thing also is tech integration that would make you stand out innovatively. And tech does not have to be, tech. Tech could be just the digital marketing that you're doing, the online marketing, the social media. Tech could be as simple as anything. You just have to be innovative and creative about it. You don't have to be tech. It could even be in your process. It could even be in how you record, in your ERP, in how you document, in how you communicate with to something that just contributes positively and essentially to this food process and preservation. So this would take me to global potential, just for you to know that the world is watching. There's a super rise in food, especially in the diaspora. Food demands, local food demands in the diaspora. Diaspora families want convenient, healthy, and a taste of home, like a all-in-one product. But I know, I will be truthful. I know that it's usually difficult at some point, considering logistics, considering storage and all of these things. But I think one of the key important things that I have personally experienced is logistics. And I would just say that one of the things that I have decided to do that has been working for me is to make do with what I have. So I essentially just say, if you can only serve, like now, I currently just serve 3 locations outside Nigeria, and I am just at it. And I keep telling my story, I keep talking about my brand. One day, someday, we will fully serve our dream locations, inshallah. So, but if we now decide to stop now, what are those people that we want to serve in the future? What are they going to see? And local techniques, global demands, you know, this global demand is very sweet because there's the dollar part, is very sweet, but good products, good packaging, these things are what is very, 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 like very, very, very important. So, I also want to mention that the challenges. I think I got into the challenges for a bit. Poor storage systems, which are usually not an excuse because you can make do with what you have. This is how I'm going to say making do with what you have. There was a time where my dehydrator was not working for a while, and what we did, I got a carpenter to do a table for me, and there was net and there was a cover net on top of that table. So I was doing sun drying. So my sun drying, I made sure that there was no flies perching on my raw materials, and it was not exposed. So there's a net, and it's a double net. There's a net beneath, there's a net above. So we are making sure that we are fine. Of course, it was taking a lot of time, but at that time, I was making do with what I have, and I was able to process and get into buying a dehydrator. Lack of access to machinery. These are the challenges. Like I just explained that access to machineries, consumer trust issues. Essentially, in food food industry, there's always the consumer trust issue, especially if that consumer had tasted something from you for the first time. Remember, we said we had like three men, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C. So Mr. C now, if somebody had tasted Mr. C's products, there will be a consumer trust issue. So this is why we have to be sure of not losing the product value, and also putting the right packaging in place for global standards. So the one of the last challenge I also like to talk about is scaling without losing cultural identity. This is really, 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 really important because scaling is hard. Scaling is difficult. You might be enticed with certain things that you you might eventually be losing the cultural identity of that product. But you have to be sure of how to do these things, and I'm going to explain to you in the solutions I'm about to give. So, first solution is for poor storage systems. You can collaborate. There are people that you can go to dehydrate, and you just pay per kg. And like I said, you can do the method I did at that time. And when I knew that I could dehydrate at some places, I used to dehydrate at their places. In fact, collaboration is very, very, very key to me. You just have to know that the market is so large. The market is like a pie, and your own industry, or your own, as a small business owner, you're just serving like 5%, and you're not just one small business owner. So I promise you, you don't even have the capacity, you don't even have the um you don't have a lot of things to serve like 1% of the market. So collaboration is key. I remember I used to buy my base from trusted people that does similar things with me. It's just a form of collaboration and partnership. So as a food business owner or a farmer, you have to be key in collaboration. Of course, there are boundaries. This is why we all need to understand the business ethics and how things should be run, and collaborate with other food businesses or agrotech businesses. Like agrotech businesses, like people that use the hydrators, that use the kind of machines that you want. You pay for that service of what they do, or you buy the product, the semi-finished product from them, and then process it into your own, but given that they are trusted. Build trust with quality control and traceability. You remember that if Mr. C had good quality control in place and proper traceability, his products might not be that bad. And quality control and traceability also goes into the packaging, like everything from the beginning of the product, from the packaging to the product, everything goes into quality control. The last one is I think is one of the fears of many people in the food industry. Many people in the food industry are scared to scale to the next level. And I promise you, the next level does not mean that um, you are now like a big, like a multinational. The next level is that when you start your food processing business by yourself, you should actually know that you cannot continue to be in the production space. You have to create systems, structures that you will not be letting out your production, your trade secrets, you will not be letting it out, but these systems would create products for you day in, day out, whether you are around or not. And you'll be able to work on the business and not in the business. So I promise to give a practical scenario of what I mean by this, and I would like us to try it as well. So, for a couple of times, I used to I used to order from Indomie Cafe, and I have noticed that Indomie Cafe had the same taste for every time I bought it. So one day I was coming back from the hospital and I got into the cafe close to my area and I was looking closely. I was observing. I'd like you to do the same. I was observing that at different times that I ordered, there were different people. It was not the same person that was on duty, and it was not the person that owns Beans Cafe. Sorry, Indomie Cafe that is there cooking the Indomie, and they have the same recipe. But let me tell you this today. I found out that every ingredient and they have different they have different type of Indomie recipe on their menu. So the ingredient for recipe A is freezed in a freezer bag, a airtight bag, and is written and is labeled rather for that recipe, spicy Indomie. They've labeled the ingredients. In fact, up onto the salt, it has been labeled. So if you come, there's a step by step. If you want to make spicy Indomie, there's the salt, there's the seasoning, there's the recipe, the mixture that nobody knows what that mixture is except the people behind the people, maybe the owners of the business or something. The same thing goes for Coca-Cola. The same thing when we went to Heineken. I'm sorry to have said that here. It's just there's a particular thing that makes that drink different from the other drink from what they said. And that particular thing is taken from the trade center. They have a trade center in every country. And nobody on the factory floor knows what it is. So, as for me as well, I have incorporated this process. Nobody in my factory knows what essentially makes my akara chips different, makes my bean mix different. But they just have a step by step. In fact, all the ingredients that I know that I don't want anybody to, I just give it something else. I give it another name. So you don't know what's inside. You're just following the SOP that I have given you. And once you do it step by step, the change is never going to change. And I feel like this is one of the things that has helped us to see that scaling is possible at Equat Foods. And I think I've been able to take away some fears. And you don't have to do it immediately. It can take a while, but it's just to essentially understand the concept behind it, that it's possible. Your trade secret, nobody has to know it. Nobody has to know it. Nobody has to know what makes you stand out. It could be in anything. It could be in your form of marketing. It could be in anything, essentially. Nobody has to know. Documentation is key when it comes to food processing and preservation, because there's a particular process that during and R&D is one thing that I do a lot. You know, the akara chips you taste now is different from the one you tasted at the first time we launched. So because we are doing like a continuous improvement, and we are documenting it, we are seeing what is different. I can identify what is different. I can identify what we've done better. So documenting, even if it is a notebook or on your Google document, something that you can open it anywhere, is really, really, really important in food processing. And this would leverage you or your product or your business for global standards and give it a global potential. So I'd like to say that if you don't remember anything else from this conversation, I want you to remember that our food is not just culture, it's not just tradition, it's not just the food and the crops that we plant that we find in the market. It is capital, and money is sleeping there. So you cannot afford to let that money keep sleeping just because you are handicapped. You can't do so much. You believe that you're the only one doing it. No, there's the ability to move from one stage to the other. Don't look down on the way, don't look down on those potential, local ways. Those local ways, there are global potentials. You have to do these things, document it, like write it down, refine it, make it more appealing, more beautiful, and then you package it. Start with what you know, and then seek more knowledge, seek more knowledge about these things. That little thing that your grandmother used to do to preserve food can be your global um, change in terms of economy, prosperity, job creation, anything it could be. And as for me, Dr. Beans, I will keep innovating beans, the more and more I can, one packet at a time, actually. And I hope you to find the courage to turn your local food and wisdom into lasting impact. I just hope you're able to do that. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Beans. It's been an amazing session. I was glued throughout, and it made me realize that, like you said, that there's nothing that is really new. It's just the advancement in technology and enhancements that makes all the difference. Okay. So I remember that growing up, I used to see a woman in our house spread her iru outside to dry up rather than the salt preservation method. And these days, people use dehydrator instead. So it just gets better with technology and improvements. There's really nothing really new, just enhanced and improved. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's been an amazing session. People, if you have questions, please ask Cole. And if you like to connect with Dr. Beans, you can check her out on IG, on Facebook. She's on LinkedIn as well. And reach out to her. You never can tell. You could have a collaboration or even mentorship if you think that you have something that seems similar and you may need. I trust that she would be of good support. Thank you, Sister Latifa, for joining us this morning. With that, we come to the end of this session. Assalamu alaikum to people.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you to Jazakumullah Khair.